This is a pro move. You start off with the smallest portion first, and you hide this plate. So when someone comes away, like looks at you, you're now just like eating what looks like a normal portion. If that didn't make sense to you, then you're not part of the club. Hey guys, Dave Chang here. Today, in honor of the Broncos visiting the Saints on Thursday Night Football, I'm merging the classic New Orleans Po Boy with a Denver specialty known as the Mexican Hamburger to form a sandwich known as the Smothered Mexican-Hamburger Po Boy. Spoiler alert, it's awesome. One of my favorite restaurants in the world is Domalice's in New Orleans. My friend Anoop introduced me to it. They serve the coldest beer in the world. And I didn't believe that at first because it's a goblet. You order from the right side when you walk in, you pick up the food on the left side, or you pay on the, I can't remember, but it's one of my favorite kinds of restaurants where it doesn't necessarily make sense how to order, how to pick up the food. And you see a whole array of sandwiches, po' boys. And clearly the traditional ones are fried seafood, catfish, shrimp. Roast beef is with gravy is another classic one. My most recent visits to New Orleans, I was really eating these hamburgers, which you see on some menus, but I had been to Domalice's many times, but I never gotten the cheeseburger. So I got a cheeseburger po' boy. I gotta say, it was phenomenal. So the idea of trying to do a po' boy that merged with Denver and the Mexican hamburger, that's where the overlap happened. So really, this is just an homage to the Domalice's cheeseburger po' boy with a smothered sauce a la Mexican hamburger from Chubby's or other places in Denver. I'm starting off with a little olive oil and some sort of semi-smoky bacon. I'm not worried too much about, keeping the fats that I cook with authentic to some degree because it's gonna be a flavor explosion. I am going to sort of accentuate that smokiness that's in the bacon with the chilies that I'm going to use because I'm going to char those. Literally the smokiness from some of the smoked chilies and the charred peppers makes the sauce. These are Anna Hunt chilies or Hatch as well. Some tomatillos. I don't think you need to use tomatillos. You could literally just make this with these Hatch chilies right here. But tomatillos are wonderful. They have a nice amount of acidity to them. I'm probably going to char 3 of these guys. I believe the sauce is traditionally usually a red chili sauce. Gustavo Arellano, one of the great food historians, particularly great food writers, journalists, he wrote a book that says, arguably one of the finest iterations of Mexican-American food in the country is the Mexican hamburger. I've had a really good version of a Mexican hamburger at Chubby's. I don't believe Chubby's is the originator of the Mexican hamburger. It's another restaurant that I think is now closed. Could be wrong there, but Gustavo Arellano, if I recall correctly, he describes it as one of the finest iterations of what Mexican-American food could be. So there's great food in Denver. I don't know if people realize that, but one of the things that people think about Denver might be lots of lamb, but Mexican food, particularly Mexican-American versions and Tex-Mex, is very popular in that area. It's not a surprise that, say, Chipotle, the chain, was founded in Denver. So if I was going to make this a red one, maybe I might use some different dried chilies, like a ancho or a chipotle, which is a smoked jalapeno. But I want to use this as a green sauce, so I'm going to make a green version of that. These are not terribly spicy. Occasionally you might get a bite here or there that might have a little heat, but I mean, not very spicy. I'm gonna add that, skin and all, because I am gonna puree it. One of these, I'm gonna add whole. If I need to adjust the spice, I can add that later with some hot sauce, but you can always add things like salt and heat. You can never take it out. I feel pretty confident that one of these with the seeds will be sufficiently spicy enough. I'm not looking to make this so hot that people can't eat it. I want it to be hot enough where people that like spicy foods say it's not hot, and people that don't like spicy foods think that it's like really too spicy. So a lot of the spice is in the seeds and the membranes and the wall inside these peppers. So removing them doesn't make it not spicy, it just dampens it quite a bit. I'm gonna do a little bit of a cheat here, which I don't really care, is I'm gonna add some bouillon or some bouillon paste. If I had a chicken stock on hand, I would add that, but I don't. I haven't seasoned this at all yet, right? I did not add any salt. That's all I'm gonna use for the salt, and it's gonna impart that broth flavor that I need. So again, if you had chicken stock or chicken broth, I would have added that, or beef, or any kind of soup that's a broth stock. That's really nice. I'm not gonna add lime juice, which I think you might normally do. Again, this is not an authentic recipe, but we don't have limes, so I'm gonna substitute limes. I'm gonna add some rice wine vinegar instead, because what I'm looking for is the acidity. I'm gonna add some cumin and some oregano. I literally added more oil because I wanted to toast those spices. All right, now I'm gonna add the cilantro. I'm gonna puree it. Really smells nice. I'm gonna add a little water in here because I wanna scrape off all that deliciousness that's at the bottom. Make sure I get that into the sauce. I'm gonna whip this so it's very smooth, and we'll adjust for seasoning. Pretty good. I know at Domiciles they actually split the bread, the baguette. I prefer to not, because this is, especially with this one, it's so messy. It's such a saucy sandwich, very moist, that I want this intact so it holds a lot of that sauce. I mean, I like my po' boy to be fully dressed, which I'm not from New Orleans, but that is basically lettuce, tomatoes, pickles. One of the things I'm always thinking about this dish is the structural integrity of the sandwich itself. Very minute, but I'm gonna try to extract as much water, moisture from everything because it's clearly gonna get saturated in the green chili sauce. A hot take is this: I don't prefer hothouse tomatoes over delicious heirlooms or something that was properly grown. But a really delicious tomato is too juicy, too sweet, too perfect, right, to put in a sandwich, which is why I feel like these are the tomatoes that make a very delicious sandwich. I just don't think great tomatoes make great sandwiches. I'm not weighing this out. These are like, I would say 4-ounce patties. This is also an 80% to 20%, 80% lean to 20% fat. I do think the ideal ratio, the magic mean, the magic ratio for burgers or anything that is a meatloaf or something that intends to be juicy, like a terrine even, is a 70-30 ratio. That is the golden ratio, in my opinion, for ground meats. And that really aids to the Maillard reaction, which gives it the crispiness and the brown, and that's a caramelization of the sugars naturally in the meat. But the fat is crucial to keeping things juicy, and fat also equals flavor. So I'm not a fan of anything that is 90 to 95% fat free. I do prefer probably the lowest ratio you can get in most supermarkets. I mean, the highest ratio of fat is 20%. And I think that's more than enough for this dish. But if you can't find, or you make your own blend, 70-30 is the way to go. The best mayonnaise for me is QP. And one of the great hot sauces of all time is the classic Tabasco. Now, fair warning, if you're cooking this inside, it's gonna make a mess of your kitchen. So I would probably cook this on the outdoor grill, not grilling it, but putting a pan on the grill. I'm seasoning it this way, which seems funny, mainly because I know that if I cover the surface area of this sphere of meat, it's going to work out the same as a hamburger. I don't like seasoning the hamburger when it's flat because the salt does not penetrate the meat on the other side, and I find it to be unwieldy and unruly to actually work with, you know, an actual disc of hamburger meat. So I want to season it when it's a ball. This is not a hamburger press, it's just a weight. If you don't use this, you can use the bottom of a bowl or another pan. And that's going to be cooking on high heat. The mayonnaise, seasoning with the Tabasco on both sides. Pickled jalapenos. The pickles are important because there's, again, a lot of fat in this dish, whether it's the mayonnaise, the sauce itself, the beef. So again, acidity is crucial in a sandwich. It's something that I feel like oftentimes gets overlooked. This is clearly optional, but I feel like if you're gonna have a smothered hamburger, gotta have a little heat. I'm gonna take some of this liquid out. I mean the fat. The reason I drained it a little bit is when you have too much liquid or grease accumulating, it's really hard to get it nice and caramelized on the bottom. And the reality is, if I just cook 2 burgers like a normal person, I wouldn't be having this issue. But since I do what they don't want you to do in cooking school, is crowd the pan, I don't care. Oh, don't crowd the pan. So in cooking school, they give you F Chang. You screwed it up again. Well, I tell you, teacher, you're wrong. The things they're too afraid to teach you because they assume that you can't handle the truth. And the reality is, you can get it nice and caramelized. You just have to wait a little bit. So this inevitably is gonna look like the runt of the litter, the middle one, because the flame is on the outside, so this is gonna be the coldest part. I'm gonna add it now, which is way too early, because what I want the cheese to caramelize. I want it to get crunchy. I want texture on it. And one of my favorite cheese is cotija. I'm gonna add some cotija in here as well. So it's creating these cheese, I don't know what the term would be, it's a cheese wings, and that's what I want. Almost on the cusp of burning, like you see right there. One reason why I'm not so concerned about getting perfect brownness on the hamburger is there's so much flavor in the cheese that's caramelizing, that's easier to get sugar browned than, say, a pan that's crowded with too much meat. Which is why if you're in cooking school and you're doing this, and an instructor says, "What are you doing?" Your response should be, "Hey chef, trust the process. I got this," and step off. Yeah. Don't tell him I said that. I think we're here. We got cheese wings. I'm gonna also do something you're not supposed to do. Cutting these suckers in half. The hamburger police saying, "You can't do it this way." Yes, your hamburger police lives rent-free in my head. Do I want to add this? Not really. It doesn't really add anything for me. But I feel like if you're going to eat this, you need to know that you had something healthy. It's the only reason this exists. Iceberg is such a crucial lettuce because it holds up extremely well to heat. serious here. I said this the other day. This is only the second time I made this. That this might be the most delicious hamburger sandwich I've ever made in my life or tasted. It has like elements of a BLT to me, which clearly is one of the great American sandwiches of all time. It is actually a homage to Don Melisse's cheeseburger po' boy, and it's smothered. So it has elements of like the wetness you'd get from a French dip, which clearly another huge favorite of mine. And you put it all together, it balances out. It's a little sweet, it's spicy, it's got texture. You're getting a little bit of everything. And I highly encourage you to make this. If this was a player, this would be 2007 Tom Brady. It's like the perfect season. This might be in running for one of the best things you could possibly make. And I would honestly say that if aliens came down and they were like, make the most delicious dish you could possibly make. The most delicious dish. Not the most beautiful, not the most technically perfect, laser gun to my head. I would be making this. I'm not kidding. Thanks for watching. Make sure to catch the game every Thursday night on Amazon Prime and subscribe to the Sports on Prime YouTube channel.